Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another episode review from Season 5 of The Loud House. Today's episode is titled, Family Bonding. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. The episode begins with Lincoln and Clyde playing spies based on a new comic book series they started reading. Lynn walks into the house and announces new neighbors are moving in and they go over to visit them. When offered a Michigan cherry pie, the Millers nervously decline in wanting to take it. Later that night, when Lincoln sees the Millers acting strangely through the window, he alerts his family the new neighbors are spies. But his family won't believe him because in the past, Lincoln always jumped to bizarre conclusions about every new neighbor. Not wanting to give up, he and Clyde decide to investigate the Millers to see if they're more than what meets the eye. They gather evidence and start piecing the puzzle together on what the Millers could be up to based on their findings. They conclude the new neighbors are working for an evil organization they dub Suspense, secret underground society of peach entrepreneurs nixing sour exports. They speculate their goal is to wipe out all the cherries, a major export in Michigan, and doing so would crash the economy. To confirm their suspicions, Lincoln sneaks into the Miller's house during a family barbecue he sets up as a distraction. He finds a machine in the attic, but before he can do anything, he gets caught by his family and the Millers. He explains why he did what he did, but the Millers explain they work for the weather service and the machine is used to predict the weather. Lincoln feels defeated and lets Clyde know the mission was a failure. However, upon throwing away his walkie-talkie, he accidentally opens a secret room to reveal a detonation device just about to wipe out all the cherries. It turns out he was right about the Millers the entire time. The neighbors confirm they are, in fact, spies working for Suspense, and their goal is to wipe out the state cherry supply in order to make peaches the top fruit in the world. Lincoln manages to stop the detonation device before the timer runs out, and with their plan thwarted, the Millers make an escape and Lincoln makes the news. The family apologizes for not believing him, and when Lynn informs the family of another set of neighbors moving in, Rita tells Lincoln to investigate them before they go over to meet them. Lincoln happily accepts as he dons his spy suit. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. To be honest, I had the eeriest feeling this episode was going to end exactly the way anyone would have expected it to end. Just look at the Season 4 episode Snoop's On, where it turned out Luna wasn't turning into the kind of rebel her siblings thought when they were reading her diary. The Season 2 episode Cheater by the Dozen is another prime example of this. In fact, look at other shows where they followed the usual let's jump to crazy conclusions and then find out we were wrong the whole time plotline. It's an overused conflict we've seen many times before, and The Loud House, prior to this episode, was no exception to using this plotline. However, the predictability of the what would have been expected ending didn't take place, and we were thrown for a loop. I give credit to the writers for swerving the audience at the last second, and given the ending we got, I give more credit for how they didn't pull off the ever cliche, none of this ever happened because it only took place in someone's imagination ending, like they did in the Season 1 episode Butterfly Effect. Be that as it may, there were some minor issues I found with the episode. If it's true Lincoln always wants to investigate the new neighbors when they move into the neighborhood, why wasn't that the case back in the Season 2 episode Future Tense when the Yates family made their debut? With the way that family was always smiling about everything, you'd think Lincoln would be a little bit suspicious. There are three possible reasons as to why it didn't go down the way it did. One reason could be that Rita and Lynn Sr. were so caught up in making their kids as well-rounded as the Yates children, Lincoln wouldn't have had time to do any investigating, and considering how drained he was from doing those extracurricular activities, I don't blame him for not wanting to spy. The second reason could be how Lincoln and Clyde were not reading those David Steele comics at the time the Yates family moved in, and only started investigating new neighbors after they started reading, or after befriending the Yates family when they realized maybe there's nothing wrong with them after all. The third and most obvious reason would be the writers weren't thinking that far ahead into the future. Yeah, I guess either or can work depending on how you choose to approach it. A little consistency doesn't hurt. But speaking of consistency, or not, didn't Lola herself say she used to be a tattletale, but not anymore as stated in the Season 1 episode, A Tattler's Tale? Maybe it seemed a little out of character, but I suppose given the past circumstances of Lincoln assuming the worst about any new neighbor and how his family didn't want to make a scene or have the Millers think any less of them, perhaps Lola's tattling when she found out Clyde Clyde and Lincoln were snooping on the Millers was justified. And finally, we never found out who that woman in the library was when she handed Mr. Miller a book on peaches and whatever became of her following the Millers' escape. Maybe she was an accomplice and caught wind of their foiled plan and made a getaway as well? It's a mystery best left unsolved. For now. Overall, this episode was just alright. It wasn't a terrible episode by no means. It may have started out predictable, and I'm sure many of us assumed how the ending was going to play out, but as over the top the big revelation was at the end, where it's revealed the episode was similar to that of a spy movie, it was certainly something different from what we're used to seeing. Rewatching the parts where Lincoln and Clyde are being dragged off from their previous spying adventures, and seeing Mr. Miller get a peach book in the suspense section of the library, and Mrs. Miller preferring a peach flippy because she hates cherries, you begin to think how intricate the pacing and direction of the episode is laid out. You think it's just a coincidence, but then it turns out to be a swerve, and that's what happened, so I can appreciate the unexpected ending. They could have gone for an alternate ending, where Lincoln appears to have been wrong about the Millers, and how he's never going to jump the gun on new neighbors ever again, and then we see in the final few seconds where he was right to be suspicious, and how the family is indeed up to something shady. But then we'd have to go into another episode about the Millers at some point down the road, and I don't think this show would ever do that. Or maybe they would. Aside from the unresolved issue of the mustachioed woman in the trench coat and the minor inconsistencies from past episodes, this was just alright. I give Family Bonding an 8 out of 10. Well, folks, that concludes my review of Family Bonding, an episode where we think we know where it's going, and then we're given a twist. It was clever, to say the least. So what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.